I surrender the mind that's attached to a self. I release all illusions that I have held, aware of the emptiness as ignorance melts. I surrender it all. I surrender all. I surrender all. Shedding self, the many layers. I surrender all. I surrender all dissatisfaction. I surrender such thoughts, speech, and action. I surrender all habitual reactions. I surrender it all. May the Bodhi that has not yet arisen arise, arise and grow. And may that which has arisen never diminish, but grow evermore and more. May I inhabit the mind stream of the holy ones. May I inhabit the mind stream of the holy ones. All conditioned phenomena are like a dream, like a dream. A bubble, a shadow, a flash of lightning. I surrender all my fixed mental notions, the grasping and clinging brought on by emotions, clearing out all the pollution of the three poisons. I surrender it all. I surrender all. I surrender all. Shedding self, the many layers. I surrender all. May the Bodhi that has not yet arisen arise, arise and grow. And may that which has arisen never diminish, but grow evermore and more. May I inhabit the mind stream of the holy ones. May I inhabit the mind stream of the holy ones.
Now, I thought that would be an appropriate introduction. Today, I wanted to just, it's good to know some of the classic stories of foe destroyers. And and overcomers, because it helps put our own journey into perspective. And it gives us a kind of both confidence and a ease um, in walking the path. Our tendency is uh, to become, this whole bit about practicing for a sense of ease is to avoid or uproot the tendency for agitation. And it doesn't matter whether it's agitation in a negative way, or agitation in a positive way. Whenever the mind is not still, there is agitation. And getting accustomed to abiding in this still kind of non-agitated state is what a lot of these practices are designed to do. I have a book called The 25 Doors to Meditation, a handbook for entering samadhi. And I thought it was a great book. It gave 25 different meditations, and I could look at them and see, some were interesting to me and some were not. Some for my mind stream and for how I am. I could see that there was an interest in um, in maybe trying that particular practice. It just felt like something I wanted to do. We think we don't have, we don't think, we think we don't have any say in this matter. You just have to learn this and you master that. But it's not really true. That's why there's 84,000 teachings. So there's one that we can take up that will really um, uh, interests us in such a way that we will actually practice it. We will look forward to it, where another one's like, that does nothing for me. Why would you even want to do that? But it's because we have these different minds. And so we need all of these different methods, and then our mind changes. If I can look back, like maybe just a year ago, I can know that I don't have the exact same interests as I had a year ago, just around what I want to know more about, what I want to practice, what I see the benefit of. So our minds are constantly changing. So on one hand, we have to balance that with consistent practice, but not so um, tightly fastened down that we can't explore with the shifting of our mind. Um, Sometimes people don't want to allow us the freedom to do that because it means they'll leave us, It means that they like some other method. They'll go to some other method, or as long as whatever they're doing fits within the framework of how I think things should be done or what I think is right, it's okay for them to, forage out there. But the minute they come to some conclusion about something that's different than the conclusion I have reached, it's like, watch out for that, you know. And so this is a path that is fraught with danger if we don't have the courage to if we don't have a taste for freedom and we don't have the courage to trust whatever we hold to be true. For instance, I have no doubt that um, the Dharma has a capacity to point out my shortcomings, and I have no doubt that it doesn't have the capacity to shape me if I vector too far off. Um, but if I didn't have that confidence, then I would really have no anchor. I would not have anything to to give me the freedom to traverse, to embark upon a journey and know for myself when I've reached the limit of a certain field of inquiry. Do you understand what I mean? Uh, I can't rely on anybody else for that. I have to rely on myself. So that means it's like learning to tie your shoe. In the beginning, sometimes you get it in a knot. You tie it into a knot, and you need your mom to come and untie the knot. But she never said, never try to tie your shoe again, because this is what could happen, you know. So we understand something in a human, ordinary way, and then we cannot see the truth of the Dharma through that medium. But if we would look, we could really see, and we could make some definite, we could create a definite individual path for ourselves within the conduct of a teaching that's for everybody. I would know how to trim it down for me so that it's so that I can use it. This is the kind of wisdom that translates into one's own wisdom from the universal wisdom. It becomes a kind of individuated aspect that brings us back to the whole of wisdom. But if we don't first have this individuated perspective, we will never find our way back to the whole. Now, it has to be held in a certain balance. Everything is about a certain kind of balance. And balance doesn't necessarily mean like just straight and never wavering. Balance can mean if the wind is blowing this way, I might need to lean into the wind to stay upright. If the wind is blowing this way, I might need to lean into the wind to stay upright. Or not go with the wind and topple over, but to compensate. And so we're constantly learning how to compensate. Um, and and that is the joy, really, of this path. Learning oneself. Uh, you you can observe a child. There's so much we can learn from observing children. You can observe a child and the pride a child feels when they have accomplished something on their own. And you want to do everything. You want to be the mommy, the grandmommy. You want to like just do everything for them, and they're like pushing you like no and turning because they want to do something for themselves. They want to accomplish something for themselves. Just the sense of accomplishment, having a sense of accomplishment is important. And while receiving things from people is really good, and giving things to people is truly awesome, sometimes the greater gift is to allow them to go through the process that they need to go through to develop confidence in themselves, to develop their own capacity for sorting out a matter, for thinking through a thing. Especially around spiritual work. In the beginning, it's not so much spiritual work. It's not work, W-O-R-K. It's not so much the cultivation. It's learning, it's putting up the stakes and setting a structure that something's going to be placed into. So in those cases, that's like teaching a child how to walk, like by walking with them and holding their hands, little things that we do, how to hold a spoon, It's like my son, I don't get it. My son and daughters came up in the same household. Daughter knows how to use a spoon like this. Son is still shoveling like this at 50. I'm like, no, we can't go out to eat together. Because he's still shoveling food like this. And so I don't know where I went wrong right there, but he just never got it. But my daughter learned a kind of I don't even call that refined. I just call that not Neanderthal, you know. And he's like, what, Mom? What? And I'm never mind. Just never mind. I just let it be. But what I'm saying is there is there is an approach that we take towards refinement in our practice, and along with it comes a sense of accomplishment. There's a regalness. There is a royalty. There's an assurance, that's not dependent upon anybody else propping us up. There's a story I think about often in the Bible when, gosh, Joshua, Moses. I think it was Moses. I think it was Moses. And he was, taking over Canaan. He was, because that was their promised land. Yeah. And whenever his arms were up, their army prevailed. But when his arms would get tired and fall, the army would fall back. So when he noticed this, and he mentioned it, I think it was Joshua and another disciple, they came and they just stood on either side of him and propped his arms up until they won the battle. And so sometimes I've always understood that in a particular way, and I've always felt that that's what happens with the first with the scriptures, then and with our practice and with the Dharma, that they like hold us up until we prevail. But then lately I've been thinking, and that was a good thought for 20 years or 30 or 40 years, however long it's been, really good thought. But now I'm in a different season. And the way that I held and understood that story, that was very useful to me at a time when I needed to be propped up. Now I recognize that I have to have my muscles exercised by reason of use to be able to hold myself up. And if we don't have certain experiences, that will be impossible to do. So we talk about the little spoiled girl that gets everything from her daddy, and she has no capacity to self-regulate, for instance. And the immense pain that causes her, although she might be wearing a certain face of entitlement, one who has eyes to see can know the anguish and the torment of one who cannot self-regulate. Because we've all had times that we, and have times that we cannot self-regulate. Even when we know it is not the appropriate behavior for people who live together in society for harmonious living, still couldn't manage it. And we either think, my spiritual practice failed me, or we think, I failed in my spiritual practice. But if we can sit with it, we can sort it out, that it doesn't have to be a blame on either side. It just merely requires a reflection to know how much to lean to one side or to the other. And when your practice starts getting like this, it starts to become a joy, because it like ceases to be practice. The word practice kind of falls away, and it becomes how you are in the world, and how you walk out your daily life, and the joy that you can find in every moment becomes becomes available to you. I mean, really becomes available to you. And this is not a kind of peace. I think sometimes we need to redefine peace, because it's not a state of nothing happening. Actually, the more peace there is, the more that is happening, the more that one sees, the more expansive one is, the more all the dots start to be filled in. It's like really getting the whole picture, so that there is nothing partial, there is nothing missing. Whenever we're in a state of non-peace, I've just completely left the whole talk that I had planned to do before the day. Whenever there is a state of non-peace, it's because in the pattern there are gaping holes. There is something missing in the pattern. But when there is peace, there is a completeness. There is no missing. There is no missing space in the picture. So when we think of emptiness, if our definition of emptiness could embrace a condition of totality, absolute fullness, nothing missing in the picture, we would want it more. We would choose peace rather than conflict. We would choose peace even when conflict comes at us, because that conflict could be held as a piece of the puzzle. Kay just bought 3 puzzles. They're 1,000-piece puzzles. I don't know why she does it. And then she lays them out on the table. And every time I come in or go out the side door, I have to look at them. And she's putting them together by herself, and I feel like I should be helping her. And I'm like, why? And then, so I looked at the box of the puzzles she just bought. I said, Kay, why do you always buy dark puzzles? I mean, they have all of this black and gray and smoke. It's like steam engines and things like that. I said, well, can you find some that are bright or that have? She says, well, they're just, I just buy whatever I see there, and I just pick them up. And but that's how I see puzzles. She said, when I look at a puzzle, I see shapes. But when I look at a puzzle, I don't see shapes. So when her eye's scanning the table, she's scanning for shapes. I put all the blacks together, all the oranges together, and then I start trying to fit them, even though they don't look like they fit. I just keep trying until something fits together. But you see, there's two different ways that we are approaching the same problem. And I'm not saying hers is right and mine is wrong, or mine is right, hers is wrong. They're just different. And the outcome is that we want the puzzle to be put together and to be assembled. But how we think that can be accomplished can be very different. So we sit side by side. And she puts it together her way, and I put it together my way. But the best time we have is when I see she's got a whole section of blacks, and I say, here, Kay, see if any of mine fit in there, you know. Because she's looked for all the flat edges, and she's now got the frame, And I'm saying, oh, that's pretty good. Looking at the shape, you can at least get the frame and you have somewhere to start. But I don't want to talk about that because I think it's better to put them together by color. And so I look at things like this, simple things, to try to penetrate complex matters, the ones that we don't have an answer for. And in that way, it softens how I hold things. And I can be with living beings who have differing views of how to resolve things. I'm getting better at that in my 70s. But it's not because of age, it's because of a particular commitment I have now that I did not have at another time in my life. So we think that we work so hard. This is a sequence of Confucius' path of cultivation. And his path was through correcting mind and behavior. He said, at age 15, I set my mind upon cultivation. So that by the time I was 30, I was firmly established on the path of cultivation. That's what, 15 years. He said, as I approached 40, I found I no longer had doubts as to the way. That was 10 years after he was firmly established on the path of cultivation. At 50, I had mastered the metaphysical range, or the range of metaphysical thought. So I'd studied different philosophies, investigated different practices. I, saw which ones were for me, which ones were beneficial for me, which ones were not. He spent 10 years doing that. Once he had no doubts as to the way. Once he had no doubts, which was 10 years after he was firmly established on the path of cultivation, which was 15 years after he embarked on the path of cultivation. At 60, I could remain unperturbed with everything I heard. I could remain unperturbed with everything I heard. And at 70, I could follow my heart's desire without transgressing what was right. That is, I always abided in samadhi. Now, I'd like to tell you about another city's journey. She said at 13, she was the emperor's consort, but she met her guru at age 16, 3 years after she became the consort. She studied with him for 4 years. And when she turned 20, she received the empowerments of practice. So she had to walk with him for 4 years before she received any transmissions. At 30, I gained realization and then began to work for the welfare of others. So for 10 years, she just worked on herself. At 30, she began to do what we might call causal bodhisattva works. At 40, her mind finally melded with her guru's mind. So it was 16, 26, 36, and 40, 24 years later, her mind melted. At 50, I vanquished devils and guarded the teachings. So until her mind entered into a certain state, there was not the capacity to vanquish devils, vanquishing evil, the unwholesome things that arise in the mind. So she warred with her mind for another 10 years. So there is the mixing with the mind of the master, but cannot hold it. That's how we have certain experiences when our mind enters that state, but we can't hold it. So it's like the difference in being samadhi is like a continual abiding. If we enter into jhana, we can't stay, but we might be able to get in there, but ultimately we drop out. So 10 years of after identifying with the guru's mind, she was able to vanquish her own demons. And she was able to guard, to protect, to hold straight the teachings. At 60, I propagated the scriptures and I prospered. I built up the community. Met her guru at 16, received her first initiations 4 years later at 20. Practiced for 10 years just doing those practices and cleansing her own mind, perfecting her own conduct. Wasn't in a hurry to do anything for anybody else in the sense of now I am the one who knows. Having to perfect patience until the time was right, the season was right. Like I deal with all of these, no matter what I say about, I have to do what Buddha Master told me to do. And, and I'm like just gung ho with that. Just because he said do it, he might not have meant this year Pannavati, or next year Pannavati, or 5 years from now Pannavati. And he might have meant 20 years from now. Steady as you go. You do, but in my mind, it's like I got to do it now. Now I got a thimble full of information, and I'm gonna give everybody a glass to drink from this thimble full. I mean, we have to constantly be regulating ourselves in this way. Yes, I do give Dharma. Yes, I am with this, but I want you to know that I am constantly regulating myself and regulating my view, because that's what it takes to really come to the conclusion of this path. So hardly anything that I think is correct in an absolute sense. Do you know what I mean? And it's okay for us to share out of our experience. Just don't think it's the truth. It's just, sharing out of our experience leaves a door open there for something to be other than what I say. Then, having that kind of humility has to be built up because it's the only thing that has the power to counter our egocentricity. It's the only thing. It's the only thing. And ultimately, that's what we fight. Anything that threatens our sense of self, anything that threatens our ego, anything, we fight it in lots of ways, in an overt way, but mostly we're stealth. Mostly we do it in a very covert way where black looks white and white looks black. Because in our mind, we're still maintaining our supreme and individuated appearance as real. We are. It's not when it's not. It's not because we say it's not. It's not when it really is not. And acknowledging that is the only way that we rub out self. It is the only way. So now, so there's this difference between age 16 to 50, or I'll say to 40, 16 to 40, before she identified with the Guru's mind. It took 10 more years before she was able to vanquish evil and erroneous views. And now became a guardian of the teachings. At 60, I propagated the scriptures, and now I could be a benefit to the community. I prospered the community. From 16 to 60, she studied and she followed the instructions. And she mixed her mind and her understanding with his. And at 60, she went forth. At 70, she apprehended the Dharma. At 70, I discovered the true nature of reality. When I turned 80, my guru departed. And at 90, she had a full experience. After her guru's departure, I saw the face of reality as essence. I perceived it directly. Without the melding of the mind of the guru that helped her, she perceived it directly. So now 16, and now she's 90. At 100, my awareness reached optimal fullness. And at 120, I became the emperor's priestess, the oracle, the one that the emperor would go to for information. At 30, 130, I traveled throughout the whole of Tibet. And by the time I was 150, I concealed treasures that's for later generations to find teachings, dharmas. And I worked solely for the benefit of others at 150. When I was 160, the king died, and at 170, I liberated my remaining disciples. I let them go. At 180, I projected apparitional forms. So now she no longer had her students at 170. She liberated them and she began to meet with them in a different space. Not just in this physical kind of way. Now she's able to do more work because she doesn't need the physical body to do it. Now she's not dead at this point. She wasn't dead, but she was able to work more efficiently by creating what? Mm.
Well,
And appearing to them, right, appearing to them, Namankaya. So that's true, both, because the Namankaya comes out of the Sambhoga Kaya. So she's remaining in the state of bliss and appearing. And
But if she hadn't died physically,
no.
so she'd still be in a physical body,
Mhm.
but that would not be a Nirmanakaya?
That's
Or does it just become the Nirmanakaya?
which one?
When she reached that high state, she still hadn't died
Okay,
physically.
so she didn't come into this world as a Buddha with the Sambhogakaya. She came in through karmic conditions.
So her
So-
body shifted into Nirmanakaya as she reached that level.
That's not exactly the way I would say it. I would say that she She says, I projected apparitional forms. When you're projecting, this is the power of the what?
Bodhisattvas.
No,
Mind.
power of the mind,
Mhm.
right? So she's talking about the degree to which her mind, when Buddha Master talks about right now, when you see things, you respond to what you see, but the time will come when what you see will be based on the state of your mind. And so that's this transference that's that takes place in conduct in simultaneously with your cultivation. What we see is an out picture of our mind, right? And as we progress, reality will manifest according to one's own mind. Remember, he told a story of he was like on the bike and he was just saying, what if this bike broke and the bike broke? Now, what if you had, and I love that story because that story speaks about, and he laughed and he took up the broken pieces to his bike. But I don't know if that's a real story or a story designed to teach, but I can take it as both a real story and a story designed to teach. That sometimes we want something, but couldn't we handle what we want? We want our minds to function in a certain way, to be in a certain state, but could we handle the aftermath of that? I think some things right now, they're like, I could just kill him. I could just kill him, and then what if that person dropped dead? I mean, so sometimes we have to, we're asking for something because we just see the good part of it without knowing, deeply the true power of it and the consequences and the aftermath. So a lot of things that we ask for spiritually, it's a good thing that the bodhisattvas are just not like sympathetic and give us everything we ask for. Because if we think we have the world in bad shape now, if we had some power, things would be in a really bad shape. And so I'm just saying to you, you have to constantly balance these the views that we hold. We get on one track and we like just go, 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 go. But he's telling us we have to constantly balance how we think about things and how we understand things to get the full understanding. The thing is that when we do, everything becomes easier and easier to fall in line with because it becomes part of our purview. It becomes part of the way we can hold something. We find that we have much greater capacity to hold things. Like whatever, like when you have your baby can do anything. It's all ain't that cute. I'm like, no, you need to train them, But that's me because it's not what? My baby. But if it was my baby, that would be allowable. That would be within the scope of them experimenting, you know. And so it's like that. So with one hand, we talk about be careful what you ask for. The only thing I'm glad about is that the bodhisattvas have enough wisdom to be compassionate enough to say no. That's just a no for you right now. And I don't take this as a put down anymore, although I did at one time. Now, if I think I have exhausted every measure for doing what I think is a, a good thing to do, and if it doesn't work out, then I can say that it just wasn't in the cards right now because I know I have done everything. that I could think of to do. If I haven't done that, then there's going to be this nagging thought in my mind. Did I do my best? Did I try hard enough? Did I understand it? What did I do wrong? Did I put C before A? So there's going to be all of these questions in my mind. But when I know that I've done my absolute best, then I can rest assured, fully believing in, embracing, trusting, seeing the nature of cause and effect. There's something that I don't know that does not lead to this that I want. There's something active that I don't know that prevents this. And it allows me to be with that. Sometimes when I'm with it, now in this acceptance, that's what acceptance means. In this acceptance of this, my mind stops trying to figure out what it is. And in the relaxing of needing to figure it out, it becomes clear. Or it doesn't. But either way, the mind can stop. So she's not dead yet, so let me continue. At 170, I liberated my remaining disciples. It means I'm no longer going to meet with you. I'm no longer, like bodily. It took her 10 years after that before she reached the state of mind state where she was able to appear to them in subtle form. And at 90, I met my only elder sister, Queen of the Sitters, and I received the supreme precept. I attained the city of long life, and the marks of rebirth and death spontaneously dissolved. Now, the reason why I wanted to share these is because it gives me an adjustment, It gives me an adjustment around my own walk. It gives me a sense of no longer feeling like so long I've been on this path. It gives me an inkling of what it takes to really, we can think we know something. It's like I think I know something. I really do. And in the whole scheme of things, I do know something. But when I have something to compare it to, I can put it into perspective, and I find the patience as a property, not like a virtue, but as a property, as an ingredient. I might not be explaining this the way I'm feeling it at the moment, but patience doesn't become an end product. Patience becomes an ingredient. And that's a different thing to me today. it's an ingredient that allows perfection. And without it, perfection's not possible. So I've always thought about patience because I'm not a very patient person. I've always thought it was, if I could see the value of it, and I could see the value of it for somebody who wants to wait that long, you know. And I could see how it was to be admired. And I had a lifetime with Pannavati that was patience personified for real. There was no fake in that, no play in that. Like it just didn't matter. He didn't have to try to be patient. And I couldn't figure out how to get in there because I considered it an end product. That's what I'm trying to say. And maybe because he had 20 more years of, practicing as a Taoist than I did. And they did a lot of that stuff, whatever it is they do. I just did a little bit. But he did a lot. I just did enough that I wouldn't flip out. But he like really he embodied it because he absolutely agreed with it, with its premise. I didn't agree with it. I was like, use patience when you don't have any other, way of escape. You don't have anything else, then you just got to be patient, you know. So, but I understand it today as a necessary ingredient in the process. And this is the value of hearing one little thing in season. And I share these little things with you because this was the point that I wanted to make. When we get to the place that we can follow our own heart without transgressing what is right. Sometimes for me to follow my heart, I'm going to transgress what is right. I'm going to transgress what even I think is right. And just say, well, I'm working on it or whatever. But can you imagine what it would be like that what was your own heart's desire was always perfect, the perfect thing to do in a moment? I can only imagine what that would be like. Because I personally am always at war with right. I feel the weight of it continually. That's my suffering. And just trying to allow the prajna to wash over me in such a way. It's one time I was like lamenting to Buddha Master that, I'm so confused. I don't know, I want to say things. I don't know how to say them. I just don't know what to do. And he said to me, all you have to do is line up you, Pannavati, get into my mind stream, line up with the stream of my mind. That's all I'm requiring of you. I'm not requiring of you to do anything. I'm bidding you come and line up with the mind stream, and I'll take care of everything. And that's what I've been trying to do. Figure out how Pannavati stops doing. I'm speaking to you honestly today. How she comes to an end. That's my question. That this is not about living and dying in the ways that we think about life and death. This is something entirely different. How Pannavati comes to an end. I can't like poison her or kill her, because she'll just have rebirth and keep on rolling. But how she comes to an end. So we can understand that achieving self-realization, it's not an easy affair. And we can think we're so enlightened, but we have not passed through the gates of hardship at all. Cannot demonstrate the slightest bit of protracted, samadhi. And we can deceive ourselves thinking that surely this is easy and I must be half the way there. But when the mind starts to turn in this way, one begins, not never, but one begins to not see the journey through the lens of self. There is the journey for sure, but there is the gradual dissolving of the self. Milarepa was a student of Martha. And when he went and asked Martha to teach him, before Martha gave him any spiritual instructions, he required Milarepa to build and knock down and then rebuild a stone tower over and over and over again. And to build the tower, Milarepa had to carry stones on his back, and the efforts just worn down. So it was kind of like what did Sisyphus had to roll the stone up the mountain, and the mountain and the stone keeps the boulder, and it just keeps rolling down. But this work then really broke Milarepa, and he had these wounds on his back. But he would not give up his obedience to his teacher, because he felt that it was, like curing some karmic obstructions. And it's really, really, if you've never read The Life of Milarepa, you should read it. And when I first investigated Tibetan Buddhism, I was very drawn to like that clique. There was Marpa, there was Milarepa, there was Talopa, you know, and it said that Talopa was an incarnation of Maitreya. And in that time, teachings were only given to select students. But before Milarepa left his teacher, Marpa told Milarepa that he had received his whole teaching and assured him that he had not held anything back. And yet he couldn't see that he had the whole teaching. And I think about how many times Buddha Master has said he has given us everything we need. And yet my hungering mind, my mind for knowledge needs something else so that I can understand this better. And I'm not saying that we should not do other investigations, because we're going to do what we want to do, what we think will help us. So don't misunderstand. I'm not saying don't look at anything else. I'm just saying know that it is your own mind. Yes, Nancy, it's your own mind that's craving. And that craving can come to an end. Some of these stories about these great spiritual masters, some of them lived in a cave for, I don't know, 80 years. Some never saw a cave. Some just lived in the amongst the public. They had all different kinds of ways. None of that. That was all outside thing. But now I'm talking about something that's required inside. If you really want to get it, you come to a conclusion about how you personally feel and hold what you have been given. Do not indulge in wandering thoughts. Just let the mind be tranquil. Because if you indulge, you will succumb to unwholesome thoughts. Do not be distracted. Be attentive to what you have. Because if you are inattentive, your devotion will be carried away by the wind. Do not leave, but stay where you are so that your foot doesn't stumble. Do not seek pleasure, but control yourself. One of the highest pleasures we have is spiritual pleasure. There's hardly anything that can surpass. Well, I haven't found anything that can surpass it. Buddha Master said that's one of the problems with devotion. Because as much as we have cravings and around certain delights and pleasures, that last chasm that you have to cross by yourself, you can't do it. You can't give up who you devoted to. So you can't cross by yourself. He said it's the fastest way to awakening. Absolutely. It's the fastest and the easiest. But crossing that last chasm is where the obstacle is. If you sleep on these matters, the 5 poisons of corruption will overwhelm you. So you might want to know what I was reading from. I have 2 big books. One, of course, is Imparting, and this one, How to Measure and Deepen Your Spiritual Realization. And this book is a great help to me. I don't think it's in print. I don't think you can buy it as a book now, but it's great for somebody like me who've been in a lot of different traditions, learned a lot of different techniques, who saw the value in those techniques. There may not be things, methodologies that I'm using right now. There may not be where I'm focusing my thought, but I have in the past, and I've already processed and assimilated that, but this is a course on evaluating your meditation progress and spiritual experiences. And it is really helpful to me because I find in here a lot of things that I am going through, like right now. And it's as a way of taking them all from being this high special experience. So, this is what spiritual practitioners go through. You go through in times like this. This is a way to balance out your thinking about that. So it helps me a lot. And if you're not having them, you don't need this. But when you start really having them, then it has been helpful to me. It's given me some food for thought from where I sit, you know. Um, And it helps me to know that my experience isn't special. It's just one of the 99 gabillion ones that you can have on this path. So I can learn how to have it, to be in it, to fully benefit from it, to enjoy it, and yet not to attach to it. And we say like I had a master that said, just be ordinary. Well, maybe I won't say just be ordinary. I'll just say, just be natural. Yeah. If anyone wants to say anything. Yeah.
This reminded me of a nun when I was in 8th grade. And this line, she used to say, wake up and die natural. And I just got what she was saying. That's the weirdest thing. Nobody knew what the hell she's talking about. She was Buddhist.
Well, I hope I didn't bomb y'all out. I was just really trying to
No,
help you
put
to
it in perspective.
be easy, to be at ease, and really enjoy this journey. It's like, going somewhere, destination by car, and the scenery is just flying by and you're not seeing anything. And I'm saying, don't miss it. Don't look out the window and catch the scenery as as it's passing by, or as you passing by it. This is a wonderful life. And don't be afraid of hardships, you know, because they're not really hardships unless our mind tells us that they are. Unless our mind convinces us that they are. They might be ships passing, but they don't have to be heavy. It doesn't have to be hard. And then every day you will experience something marvelous in this existence, and yet know that it's just an illusion invading the mind, not this ordinary mind, but I won't even say the cosmic mind, because there's something bigger than the cosmos. I don't know what it is. But by the time we confine it to or tie it down to cosmos, we've already concretized it into something. In the Bible, there was a scripture that talked about faith being the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And then it talked about there being there was another scripture around that, and I can't think of that one. Maybe I'll find it because I like to quote it. Quote it more definitively, but it was saying basically that everything you see, that's why I can see the correlation, not so much between Judaism and Christianity. I mean, Jesus was a Jew, but what the Dharma that he was bringing, you know, it got tied along with his, you know, with the human element of his, you know, historical Jesus, but he was talking about something else. When I connected with Dharma, it speaks differently. It speaks differently to me. So it's just the connection that we have, what we tie it to gives it a certain outpicturing, you know. But it talks about the things that are seen are made, something like a made from things that which does appear, or it's something like that, but it's like such a confusing passage. And it was saying in essence, everything that you see has come out of something that was unseen that came into manifestation, you know. And so the Dharma is logical next step for me because it starts to break down those kinds of things. And so I loved them. I love looking for the whatever I didn't fully understand or I got an inkling of, that's what I look for in my prior teachings. I have a great respect for Taoism, so much so that when there was talk about what some of the limitations are, like frankly, I didn't want to hear it. Y'all should catch up with Taoism and how good it is and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no harm, no foul. I'm not denigrating. I'm just saying this. And there's also this. That is the more. And because you stepped on that platform, this can be shared. This can be shared with you. So at this stage, it starts to not get to be so much to talk about. So, you know, so vast and so wide. It's little things that within themselves are vast and boundless. Just little things. One little thing becomes like a whole universe. One little truth, you know, one little thought
May the merit of our practice here today, our listening to Dharma, our effort to come and listen to Dharma, go to living beings everywhere. May they encounter the Dharma, encounter a teacher, encounter a friend who knows something about the Dharma, who can let them know that there's a way that they can understand things just a little clearer. May all be well.